Hey guys, get ready for a monumental story about California that changes the game on executive power and domestic military deployments. This week, Governor Gavin Newsom finally secured a victory against the White House, forcing the Trump administration to pull back federalized National Guard troops that have been deployed to the streets of Los Angeles for months. Please like and comment. I want to read a few comments live before I finish today. So the big news, guys, the big news broke today. December 15th, Newsom posted a confirmation that for the first time in June, the federalized troops are gone. This confirms that the Trump administration chose not to appeal a stinging federal court order. And, that makes clear that what Newsom is calling right now an authoritarian, overstep. He said, this is an authoritarian overstep. I believe I actually have this for you. Let me share this for you here. Here we go. This is what he posted today. You can see December 15, 12:16 p.m., the actual date and time. He says, for the first time since June, there are no federalized troops deployed to the streets of Los Angeles, thanks to the work of many. This clear authoritarian overstep by Trump has ended. Oh my God, there we have the punches. He's throwing punches right away, celebrating. He's happy, he's smiling, and he should be. This should be, why? Because this literally is a stinging federal court order for Donald Trump, which marks a clear end to what Newsom is calling an authoritarian, overstep. Why? Because this has been an illegal deployment by Donald Trump, the Trump administration. We know that there was no justification, no reason to actually deploy these troops to Los Angeles or to Portland or to Chicago. Why? Because there's three basic requirements, and none of those have been met. There's no rebellion, there is no invasion, and there is no incapacity of local authorities to actually handle any protest or situation going on in any of these places, Los Angeles, Portland, or Chicago. So that's why they know this is illegal and it's against, states' rights, which is weird because the Republican Party, Donald Trump and the Republicans, they always claim that they are the party of, states' rights, states' independence. But anyway, the thing is that the ruling, this massive ruling of the court, it's a blow to the administration, to the claims that the president has this sweeping, unreviewable power. On Wednesday, December 10th, last week, if you're not aware of actually where's this coming from. So on Wednesday, let me show you this here. Look at that. A federal judge orders Trump to return control of California National Guard to Newsom. This happened last week. The judge found, this has been ruled many times, but finally, a final review, the judge said this has definitely been illegal. So we're going to order you to return control of the National Guard back to the Trump administration, to Gavin Newsom. You should give it back to California. So a federal judge ordered the Trump administration on Wednesday to end its deployment on National Guard troops in Los Angeles and return control of the California National Guard to Governor Gavin Newsom. About 100 National Guard members have remained in Los Angeles since June, when Trump first federalized about 4,000 troops to thwart protests over deportation raids. Most of the troops have been released from service, but the handful that remain had their orders extended in October. The Trump administration argued that since the 9th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals had found the initial deployment was legal, re-upping the deployment was also legal. U.S. District Judge Charles Breyer disagreed in an order Wednesday. He said, indeed, at the motion hearing, defendants confirmed their position that after initial federalization, all extensions of federalization orders are utterly unreviewable forever. That is shocking, Breyer, the judge, wrote. Such a scenario would validate the founders, widespread fear of or for a national standing army, which they believe pose an intolerable threat to the individual liberty and the sovereignty of the separate states. So then he said that his order wouldn't go into effect until Monday. So this was last Wednesday, and he said, I'm not going to make this, order I'm not going to make it like immediate because I want to give you guys, they always show deference and respect for the executive, the administration. So they said, we're going to give you a couple of days until Monday. So if you want to go and just, challenge it, if you want to appeal, you can do that. But, to my surprise, they didn't appeal. So that's what happened. Then on Wednesday, December 10th, the U.S. Judge, this district judge, granted a preliminary injunction. He ordered the administration to relinquish control of the remaining troops and return them to the state. The judge gave the White House until noon today. So it was until today, but noon, December 15th, to appeal the injunction. But the troops were pulled back instead, which is surprising. So the stakes, and the judge's scathing rebuke, to me, was not a surprise, but what Trump did was a surprise. So Judge Breyer did not mince words. He rejected the administration's legal defense that protests against federal immigration enforcement amounted to rebellion that justified federalizing, state troops. And that's weird. They call rebellion what the Constitution calls, just your First Amendment right to free speech and to protest, which is a constitutionally protected activity. But they now want to relabel that and call it, if it's against the administration, it's rebellion. But if you have people, storming the Capitol because they want to stop Joe Biden's certification and they want to hang Mike Pence, that's a day, Trump called it, that was a love day, a day full of love. Those were loving manifestations of just committed patriots who were peacefully protesting, and then they became, prisoners of war or whatever, some bullshit like that, and they ended up all receiving a pardon. But anyway, the judge, he called the administration's claim that a president could extend deployment indefinitely shocking. Judge Breyer warned that this interpretation would allow a president to create a perpetual police force comprised of state troops. So he also called the mission itself profoundly un-American, stating that peaceful protests do not justify at all, military deployment. So this case is particularly notable because the judge also stated that the administration's argument for continued deployment bordered on misrepresentation. And this is not a new thing. We've seen the Trump administration lying and misrepresenting facts all over the place. Every single court case that they have, when it came to the Abrego Garcia case, when it came to the James Comey case or Letitia James case, we're seeing all these high-profile cases. Once you start seeing what they're claiming, the sandwich guy. Remember this guy from Washington D.C. that they accused and failed. They went through like 3 or 4 different grand juries to try to indict this guy, and finally they couldn't, and so they had to just try to charge him for civil. Civil violations instead of criminal charges, and even then the case was dropped by the jury. The jury didn't want to find this guy liable of any violation at all. But anyway, moving forward, so when it comes to the California case, furthermore, Attorney Rob Bonta, Attorney General from California, Rob Bonta, he called the ruling to, just get Trump out of California and out of Los Angeles. He said this is a victory, for the rule of law, and stated that the president is not a king. So this victory, this LA, this Los Angeles victory, is huge for states' rights, because right now that's, I don't know, the Republicans are even getting to the point where they want to question if states have even any independence at all, any sovereignty. Why? Because now they even want to push pardons, like federal pardons. They want the presidential pardon to even apply to people who are in jail for state crimes. They're trying to save this lady who helped Trump with some fraud. This is one of the only documented cases of somebody who committed fraud, and it was a Republican, and she did it on behalf of Trump in Colorado, and she's now serving a sentence in Colorado. Tina Peters, I believe is her name, if I'm not mistaken. I know it's Tina. I believe it's Tina Peters. And they want to save her. They're trying to follow this policy, no MAGA left behind. And but the problem is that those are state crimes. Now they have this legal argument that they're trying to take all the way to the Supreme Court for the Supreme Court to determine if a presidential pardon can actually apply to state crimes, which would be a total violation of the Constitution, and then the separation, of the federal and state governments, and that states are definitely sovereign and independent. So if that were to be the case, then they would have to become, just the federal government and just remove all states, rights. Why? Because then at that point, once you cross that line, anything in terms of federal interest, you can argue whatever you want. So I don't think that's gonna, they're gonna go that far. Like, you mean the Supreme Court? But you never know. The Supreme Court is changing so much and putting more, so much more power in the hands of Donald Trump, concentrating all this power, at the executive, which, it's just very concerning. But anyway, that's why Rob Bonta was saying that this LA victory is a huge states' rights, victory. But the legal battle over these federal deployments is far from over right now. It's far from over in other cities. The Trump administration's call up of troops in, to Chicago is currently being weighed by the U.S. Supreme Court. And deployment to the Chicago area was previously blocked by a U.S. district, judge. And like LA and Chicago, Portland has also been involved in litigation challenging the deployments. In Oregon, the 9th U.S. Circuit of Appeals had previously put a ruling on hold that would have allowed the president to take command of Oregon's National Guard troops, creating a state of limbo. And Attorney General from California, Attorney General Rob Bonta, has previously secured a final ruling that blocked the cross-state deployment of California National Guard's troops to Portland. So this means that the core legal question, if the president, the president's authority to federalize state troops over a governor's objection is still being, decided across the U.S. court system. So while Los Angeles won this battle right now, Gavin Newsom won this battle, for now, we still have to wait to see who's going to win the war long term, because the legal battle over the future of domestic military deployment continues to rage across the country right now. And you can bet Trump is not giving up, which was a surprising thing to see today, because, this judge ruled that Trump had to give control of the National Guard, give it back to Gavin Newsom by today at noon, Monday, the 15th. And Donald Trump did so. They actually pulled back the troops, and, Newsom is in control. And that is why I'm telling you that he posted this literally today, saying for the first time since June, there are no federalized troops deployed to the streets of Los Angeles. Thanks to the work of many, this clear authoritarian overstep by Trump has ended. So Newsom is celebrating. Like I said, he's all smiles right now. He's actually very happy about this, and we should be, guys. Like, this is not a good thing. Think of situations in which either government, it doesn't matter if it was Biden or if it would have been Kamala, had she won, or, Trump interfering with states' rights. It's not a good thing. Even Donald Trump himself said it during the first term. He was addressing deploying National Guard troops, and he said, we cannot, this is Donald Trump on video. Donald Trump said, we cannot federalize National Guard without the governor, without, government's approval, the state government approval, the governor. Donald Trump said that verbatim, literally, and now, they're changing everything, because now, remember, Donald Trump has a whole team around him right now, which is, most of them are part of the Project 2025, team, and the people who actually wrote the Project 2025, they contributed, and they have these super extreme, way out there legal theories that haven't been, proven, in a court of law, but they are literally trying to change everything and destroy literally democracy and the Constitution and the freedoms that we have. And many of them even want to, establish this national, Christian nationalist, state. They want to become something, I guess, a form of Afghanistan, if you will, right? They're always talking about, all these shithole countries and, third world countries and Afghans and all, and that's what they want to turn the U.S. into this extremist country. I was watching yesterday this FBI official who, he crashed and burned so badly in a hearing in Congress. I think it was before the House, but anyway, a hearing in Congress, and they were asking him, So you're saying that Antifa happens to be a terrorist organization and that you have identified it. You have identified it. So how many members does it have? You identified it. Where is it located? Where are the headquarters of Antifa? Can you answer any of these questions? And I don't want any names. I just want to know how many members have you identified that are the part of this terrorist organization that you already identified. And the guy was like, so, I don't know, he's stuttering. It looked like, I don't know, he was so badly. It looked like he was literally shitting on his pants because he didn't have anything to say. You can stand in front of the cameras and say, yeah, Antifa's all over the place. Pam Bondi does it all the time. Yeah, Antifa. But have you seen any charges against Antifa? Have you found, any action, legal action being taken, an investigation into the actual headquarters of Antifa? Meanwhile, there's, a bunch of white supremacy, camps popping all over the nation, and they're growing. And I just saw on CNN, there's an article on CNN literally talking about this very concerning growing white supremacist camp that is doing trainings and all sorts of things and radicalizing, obviously, individuals. And nothing is being done, nothing is being said, nothing is being investigated, even though, we know the Department of Justice removed one of these reports that showed that 75% of the violence, or domestic violence in recent years was in the threat. Actually, the FBI also said this, the major threat to the country was coming from white supremacist, groups. 75% of it. But of course, let's talk about, traffickers in the Caribbean, these boats bringing all the drugs, because we want to stop the drugs and we want to stop crime and we don't want Americans to be dying on the streets unless it's, dying because they're sick, because they're starving, because they don't have, they can't afford to live and have a house. Yeah, if they die of all those other things, we don't care. We just don't want them to die, supposedly, of drugs. And particularly drugs coming from Venezuela, because that fentanyl is not coming from Venezuela, but they claim it's being made in Venezuela when we know that's not the case. But all these inconsistencies. At the same time, Donald Trump is pardoning Juan Orlando Hernandez, the Honduras ex-president, who happened to traffic. He was convicted. He was convicted for trafficking into the U.S. 500 tons of cocaine, which is the equivalent of at least anywhere from 76 to 80 full-size elephants. So if you can graphically, if you want to visualize it mentally, imagine 76 to 80 elephants in line. That's the amount of cocaine this MF brought into the USA, and Donald Trump decided to pardon him. Donald Trump pardoned the founder, Binance founder, CC. They call him CC, Changpeng Zhao, something like that's his name. And this guy allowed all sorts of money laundering related to terrorism, to human trafficking, child sexual exploitation, and drug financing. All this money, the financing was happening on his platform. He knew it, but he was making billions of dollars. So he just, pretended it wasn't happening because he was bought. He was making billions of dollars. And magically, he invested or donated $2 billion to the Trump, crypto business, the Trump, Trump's son's crypto business, $2 billion. And, surprise, surprise, he received a pardon. So, I don't know. But anyway, going back to the actual news, I was just surprised that Trump was kind of like giving up when it came to this case, because this judge ruled against him, saying that he had to give Gavin Newsom, control of the National Guard and just, get the F out of California. And Trump is not known for giving up, but he did. They didn't challenge it. Even the judge told him, the judge said, I'm not going to make this order immediate, this order, to give the control back to California. I'm going to give you until Monday at noon, so you have time to appeal this order if you want. But they didn't. They just, pulled back, which is interesting. I'm not sure what you guys make of that. Please leave a comment. I want to read some of your comments once before I end the show. But anyway, remember, the National Guard deployment didn't have to do with any insurrection or rebellion or a foreign invasion, because none of that was happening. It has to do with getting people used to domestic deployment, which is violating the Posse Comitatus, law, and also the Insurrection Act. They just want to get people used to it so that Trump can use, these troops in battlegrounds during the elections in 2026 and or 2028. Why? Because in 2020, Donald Trump tried to seize voting machines. But then, back then, we had some honest people still in government, still following the law at the Pentagon, at the DOJ, at the FBI, and they slammed the brakes on Donald Trump. I'm not sure if you guys remember this, but they slammed the brakes on Donald Trump. For instance, Bill Barr at the DOJ, as much as he, helped Donald Trump in different instances, he helped him with the classified documents case. He helped him with the Russia case. He helped him with a bunch of stuff. But when it came to the actual big lie in the stolen election, Bill Barr said, that's, a bridge too far for me. I'm not doing that. There's no evidence that this was not a democratic election. It's the contrary. We have so much evidence that everything, was legal. Everything was by the book, and we have all these recounts. You lost all the recounts. You lost all the court cases. Actually, he didn't even lose court cases. Court cases never even made it, to trial, because they filed all these cases, but then they even took back some of the cases themselves. Trump's own lawyers, they just took the cases back. They literally backed out. And then many of them were dismissed by judges that even Donald Trump appointed, because they didn't even have that little, for the evidence hearing, they couldn't even show a little bit, like probable cause to go to trial. Not even that. But of course, it's a different thing to argue stuff and say all the bullshit you want to say on social media, on a podcast, on Fox News. You can go on, roll the cameras, and widespread fraud. Why it's so widespread, so crazy, and they couldn't ever. Not a single time prove a little bit of fraud. Not even a little bit of fraud. But anyway, Bill Barr said, I'm not going to be a part of this. So he backed out, and he decided, he told him, I'd rather quit. And Trump said, then you should quit. And then, okay, I'm going to quit. And he quit. And then we had the same thing with other people. Remember we had Mark Milley, General, Milley at the Pentagon, that he was saying, I'm not going to follow any illegal orders. And they already had a plan. They had a plan to deal with Donald Trump if he tried to use, troops domestically to actually go and, stay in power and go against protesters, or even go against local and federal authorities trying to enforce the law. So they said, we're not doing that. But right now, who do we have? We have Kash Patel at the FBI, and we have Pam Bondi, and then we have Pete Hegseth. So there's no hope for the human race right now based on these people. These people are never, ever gonna oppose Donald Trump or do anything against Donald Trump. We have seen that time and time again since they came into office in this new administration. So things have changed a lot, from that moment. But anyway, but now, we have little to no guardrails, which is precisely that. Any protections for democracy. Like I said, either Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, they won't stop Donald Trump. If anything, they will probably enable him to go for whatever he wants. Whatever you want, just go for it. You want to seize voting machines, you want to arrest people, you want to make up stories about fraud. So we're not even remotely out of the woods when it comes to, the federalization of troops and all the dangers Trump poses to our democracy. But anyway, I want to know, what do you think? Since the law says you can't deploy the National Guard locally unless you meet at least one of three requirements. Number one, that there is a rebellion. Number two, that there is an invasion. Or three, that local authorities are incapacitated. They don't have the capacity to control the situation. And since none of these has happened, and Trump still has deployed the National Guard, and he still is deploying it in places like Portland and Chicago, do you agree with the courts that Donald Trump is acting, illegally? Remember, there's two laws that control this: the Posse Comitatus, law, and the Insurrection Act. Both of them establish these three principles. There has to be a foreign invasion. All the courts have agreed that there's no foreign invasion justifying such a thing. There has to be a rebellion. All the courts in LA, including judges appointed by Trump or by Reagan or by Bush, all these judges across the board, the whole political spectrum from both parties. So these are bipartisans, decisions and rulings stating Trump has used and enacted and activated these deployed is the word I'm looking for. He has deployed these guards, the National Guards, illegally. And at the same time, they have ruled that none of these three requirements have been met. So what do you think? I'm pretty sure a lot of people will still, Trump supporters still say, yes, he got a mandate. He got a 77 million mandate. So that means that no judge that hasn't been elected for anything should be able to stop Donald Trump because he has the mandate. I guess we're learning as we go that getting 77, receiving 77 million votes somehow goes above the Constitution. Too bad we didn't know that when Biden was in power. Biden, just canceled student loan debt. Who cares about what the Supreme Court says? Who cares about what, any other court says if you receive 81 million votes? That was a higher mandate. That was a greater and more powerful and higher mandate than any mandate Donald Trump has received. So imagine that. Even after the pandemic, when Biden and Kamala Harris supposedly dropped the ball so badly, Donald Trump couldn't even make it to 78, 79 million votes. Joe Biden received 81 million votes back then. So, and even then, Republicans were challenging every single little action Biden was taking. Texas, I mentioned this in a recent episode. Texas alone sued, Ken Paxton, the Attorney General, from Texas. Ken Paxton sued the Biden administration alone, him alone, over 100 times. That doesn't sound like, we are accepting the 81 million mandate to me. That sounds more like we don't give a shit about any mandate and we're going to go by the law because you're not above the law. There's nobody above the law. And of course, we know Biden wasn't trying to get any presidential, immunity or stuff like that to abuse, his power. Biden is not even on record. Nobody can tell me that there's a single record of Biden asking Merrick Garland, the Justice Department, the Attorney General, asking him to indict Trump or to indict any of his political opponents. Never, ever has that happened, or didn't happen with Obama. It didn't happen with Clinton. You can say all you want. Not a single president that I know of has instructed the Justice Department to go after, his political opponents. And Donald Trump not only is doing it, he's doing it publicly. He's going to the Justice Department directly, and he's holding a press conference there, and with Pam Bondi just, next to him. He's like, these are the people that we have to go after. These people are criminals. Adam Shifty Schiff and, Letitia James and James Comey, they hurt me. They hurt me so bad. Oh, they indicted me 5 times. Oh, Lord. It's been crying like a little baby. Oh, they impeached me twice. We have to do something. Did you guys read, I'm not sure if you saw that message on social media Trump posted, literally getting on to Pam Bondi saying Pam Bondi, what's going on? It's been a lot of talk. I see you all over the place, going on the media, and a lot of talk, but nothing is happening. And these people, they're criminals. We have to take action. He literally tells her, they indicted me 5 times and they impeached me twice. And we have to fire this guy that doesn't want to indict him. Eric Siebert, the U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia. He's like, we have to do something with this guy because he's a rhino. He was never going to do his job. So that's why I'm sending you Lindsay Halligan. She loves you. And then Pam Bondi responded, oh, yes, Mr. President, we're going to do it. We're going to do whatever you want. The American people they deserve justice. They deserve to know who broke the law. And we're going to follow the law, blah, blah, blah. Well, the funny thing is that they're always claiming that they're going to follow the law, but judges in these cases, there was a judge, I believe in the Eastern District of Virginia, now for the James Comey case and Letitia James. I'm pretty sure it was during the James Comey case that the judge handling those initial hearings and process told the DOJ's lawyers. One thing that catches my attention here, he's like, one thing that is notable is the fact that when it comes to a court case and an investigation, you normally start with a crime and you work your way backwards to find a guilty person, to find a criminal, right? You have the crime, you start studying the evidence, and then you find the criminal. When it comes to you guys, he said, the concerning thing that I'm seeing a pattern, And the pattern is that you're starting with a name and then working your way backwards to find the crime. And he's like, that's not how the law works. Imagine a judge telling you that he's seeing a pattern between the cases that Donald Trump is literally ordering. Surprise, surprise. Who would have thought that when you have a political, appointed person, a president, in this case, a politically elected official, like a U.S. president, ordering his own personally appointed personal, a lawyer who happened to be, not personal lawyer, but a lawyer he worked with and that he donated to, which happened to protect them before, Pam Bondi received, if I'm not mistaken, was a $25,000 donation around the time Donald Trump was being prosecuted, or at least, he was facing a civil trial for fraud. Remember, I believe it was Trump University, and a couple of states had joined that lawsuit, and they were asking Pam Bondi to join with Florida, because apparently there were people that were affected, and she declined to join. She said the Florida was not going to join that case. But coincidentally, apparently by the time or before she made that decision, she received a $25,000 donation from Donald Trump. And then this person who, at least in the eyes of many analysts, received a donation and decided magically and coincidentally to not pursue, Donald Trump from within Florida, happens to be the person that he chooses. And now you can tell that she is 100%, kind of like a rubber stamp. She's just approving everything that Donald Trump says. And Donald Trump will call her out. Not a single time has she said, no, we have independence. Mr. President, we appreciate your commitment to the law, the rule of law, and your commitment to having, a democratic country. But I would also, respectfully ask you to let us do our job. We're going to do our job, but we don't want to give the impression that we're working directly for you as if we were your personal legal firm to just go after your political enemies. Because this is what Pam Bondi said. Pam Bondi literally told us before she, assumed office. What did she say? Prosecutors will be prosecuted. What did Kash Patel say? Kash Patel, said that he was going to come in and that he was going to go after all the Epstein files and he was going to publish them. And what has happened? Today is what? It's like day number, 26, 27 of the 30 days after the law to publish, these files was approved, and they still haven't released shit. 3 weeks in, they were so willing to publish all these files. And Donald Trump gave them the order because we have nothing to hide. We want you to publish all these files. They haven't published shit. Zero. Well, I'm telling you this as of yesterday. To be honest with you, I haven't checked today, but I doubt it. I haven't seen, this would have been all over the, the newspapers if Pam Bondi had released all the files today, and I doubt it. They actually opened an investigation into Clinton and some other people. Why? Because now they have plausible deniability. They have, we have an open investigation. So as much as we would like to release all, and that's why Donald Trump said that he wanted the law to be signed. That's why he authorized, after 10 months, mopping the floor and insulting and saying that Republicans trying to publish the files were stupid, inefficient, and being manipulated by Democrats. And after, even holding a last-minute meeting in the Situation Room and pulling Lauren Boebert by the hair into it and trying to convince her to vote against it so that they couldn't pass this law, she decided to vote, obviously, in favor. But, they did all these things against it. But, of course, they always wanted to share the files. And you can see now, the law is approved. Nothing is holding them back. Actually, they are obligated by law now to publish it. And they still are waiting, I guess, until the last day, because this is Donald Trump's tactic. This is Donald Trump's strategy all the time. It's delay, delay, delay. The more you delay, the more time you can find to distract people, to get people engaged in other stories, other flooding the zone, kind of situations. And we've seen that. There's so many, things going on right now with Venezuela, with all these, killings of alleged, traffickers, drug traffickers, and now indicting all these people, Trump's enemies, and now opening an investigation into the Clintons. When so far, you tell me in the comments, I haven't seen a single picture of Bill Clinton's condoms in Jeffrey Epstein's, property, or I don't know, Barack Obama, condoms. But we saw a picture now of Donald Trump's, condoms. Donald Trump say, and then it says, "I'm huge," which I don't know. Apparently, Stormy Daniels doesn't agree with with that statement on the condoms themselves. But that's the reality of what we're seeing right now. So this whole corruption, and it's highly concerning, very, very concerning. So anyway, guys, I think I'm going to wrap it up because I have to go and work on some other things right now. Let me just check quickly here when it comes to some comments here and say hi to some people quickly here. We have Jay, Roland here saying the governor has no control. I don't know. The courts say otherwise, and they had to give the control back. So that's what you say. I'm not sure. The courts disagree. All of them in Los Angeles, a lower court and then an appeals court, they all agreed there was zero justification for this. Yes, Estina Peterson. Thank you, Michael Bailey, for clearing that for me. I know they're trying to save her. And I don't doubt that they're going to come up with some bullshit like that. Remember, the only thing right now that should be in the minds of the people breaking the law with Donald Trump, they feel empowered, they feel emboldened, they feel, that nobody can stop them. This is why, ICE is doing all what they're doing. This is why Pete Hegseth is doing all the things that he's doing. And same with Pam Bondi. They believe that even, after the administration changes, if it's going to change, that they're going to be, safe because of the Supreme Court or because Trump is going to grant a pardon or something. They feel invincible at this point. But the reality is that they can't get away from state prosecutions. So Donald Trump can save them at the federal level, but not at the state level. So this is why now the only little guardrail that would mean accountability is that many federal laws have also equivalent state laws. So even if you get away with a federal crime, what happened with Donald Trump in the Stormy Daniels case, the federal government didn't want to pursue it, the DOJ, but Letitia James did. If you guys don't want to take, charge or part, in this, great, don't. But we for sure we will. And they did, and that's totally fine because states are sovereign, states are independent, and the Republicans, they claim to be the party of, independence, states' independence, states' rights, until they're not, right? Until they want to do what Donald Trump is doing with the National Guard, or even now claiming that a federal pardon should also cover state crimes, or even what Donald Trump is doing, which is the reason why the Indiana Republicans just, F them really deep. they just went in with no mercy, ripping Donald Trump apart. Why? Because Donald Trump and the White House were pressing these people down in Indiana, Republicans, so badly to gerrymander that they just snapped. They said, you know what? Fuck off. We're not going to do it. We were going to do it. Remember, they were considering gerrymandering, the maps, manipulating the maps mid-cycle, inter-cycle, because, the census is not until 2030. There was no reason for Donald Trump to lift the phone, pick up the phone and call Greg Abbott and say, I need you to redraw your maps. Who the fuck are you to tell states to redraw, their maps, their electoral maps and district maps? You're not supposed to interfere with that. You are the U.S. president. You deal with the White House, deal with the nation, but let the states do whatever belongs to the states. And these are state maps, not federal maps. But anyway, the thing is that I guess he's somehow claiming, well, this is related to Congress and I need to have, the majority. I want to have the Congress that I need to do my work because I have a mandate. So if I have a majority in both chambers, then I guess I can go forward with my agenda, with the mandate, 77 million mandate. That entitles me to go over whatever state, independence you guys have. And this is why I'm asking and demanding and ordering all of you to actually do what you have to do and find me different seats in the red states that we can, just redesign all these maps so that we keep a majority, because I'm fucking it up so badly. I'm doing so badly with the economy. I'm doing so badly with tariffs, with, foreign relations, with separation of families, and all this abuse of really good people, disappearing people, kidnapping people, denying due process, mocking the courts, and then enriching myself. My fortune has grown by $8.4 billion in 10 months. Unfortunately, that's not the case for you guys. And then, I'm helping the rich. We gave, again, now permanently, the biggest tax cut to the rich, and nothing for you guys. And now they're saying, well, in 2026, taxes on tips, that's actually kicking in, and taxes on overtime, which is the stupidest scam that MAGA people, unfortunately, their brains just can't comprehend how it works. Taxes on tips is, it's capped at $25,000. If you make more than $25,000, it doesn't help you at all. So that's literally peanuts. That's not going to save anyone. Just that decision right there is not going to allow you to buy a new car or to buy a new house or to do anything at all. It's literally going to be nothing. And then when it comes to the overtime promise, the overtime is also very stupid, because if you work normally 40 hours and then on top of the 40 hours, you work 20 hours in overtime, what they are saying is that those 20 hours as a whole are not exempt. What is exempt is that those 20 hours, they still calculate out of the 20 hours, they're going to take away your normal wage. So if you make time and a half, the only thing of those 20 hours that's going to be exempt is going to be the half. The normal, the time, which is your normal wage, that's still going to be processed as regular income for taxing purposes. So they're telling you all of a sudden that overtime is exempt, but go and check how many hours you get in overtime, which is not too many these days for many companies who are trying to keep costs down because of the Trump golden economy hurting every single business right now. And then think, do the math, do the numbers. If I work 10 hours of overtime every single week, that's around 40 hours per month, and then multiply that. That's 400 in 10 months, 480 in a year. And then out of 480, subtract, multiply that by 1.5 and just then keep the 0.5, because the one is going away. It's going to be also a ridiculously low amount that you're going to be able to save on taxes on overtime. That's all they did. And not only they made it extremely, extremely limited, just so they could, say that they gave you something, and then you guys go celebrating, yeah, taxes on tips, yeah, taxes on overtime, exempt, Donald Trump, yeah, and you're getting nothing. But not only they made it super, super petty and limited in scope, they also made it to expire. It's going to expire in 2028. So they didn't give you any permanent benefit. It's, so long we are in power, we may help you. But once we're not in power, screw you. We don't care. We don't care if you keep saving after 2028. But they made the taxes, tax cuts for the rich, they made them permanent. That's how much they care for you, American worker, middle class, working class person. That's how much they care for, the most, the challenge, financially challenged people in this country, that they gave you a very, very minimal, breadcrumb, misery kind of benefit, and they made it temporary. That's going to expire in 2028. But go and check what they did for the rich. Permanent, massive tax cuts. And then when it comes to the percentage, the more you earn, the higher is the percentage that you're actually saving, as opposed to helping those who make, less, which are getting hit harder by inflation and by everything else. Instead of helping those more, no, we're actually giving you the lowest percentage when it comes to savings in tax, if anything. And by many different analysis, what it shows is that actually families in the lowest brackets are actually going to end up paying, in most cases, more. And then add to that all the increases because of tariffs that they're also having to face. And now add to that because of the tariffs, now their cars are more expensive too, because they were going to have to pay a lot when it came to the household. But houses are more expensive, rent is still more expensive, electricity is up anywhere from 8% up to 18%, depending on different areas in the nation where you live. And man, it's just like a handful of things that you can cherry pick. Well, eggs are down. Well, I guess you may want to eat eggs for breakfast and lunch and dinner all day long. Just buy eggs. Go and buy 300 eggs now for the whole month and eat that, because I'm seeing a lot of you guys turning vegetarian all of a sudden. No more, I'm a carnivore. All those steaks that you were eating in the morning, breakfast, lunch and dinner. I think a lot of you are actually switching right now to carnivore because you can't afford all of that right now. And then insurance premiums are going up for cars. Insurance premiums for healthcare are going to ridiculously, go up. So they know it's a freaking disaster. This is why Donald Trump is scrambling. He's so scared because he knows that once Democrats recover the House, and it's going to happen, Sean Hannity said it, Jesse Waters said it, once they saw Miami-Dade go down, Miami-Dade went down. Let me show you this. Let me bring a video here. They are so desperate. I was just talking about this yesterday. They are so desperate right now that they are literally saying that Florida is a blue state. So they don't have to admit that actually they are losing in red states now. Because remember, on November 4th, what happened on November 4th? On November 4th, they said, oh, Democrats, the blue tsunami that they're bragging about. What happened there? They won where they were expected to win. New Jersey, New York. These are not red states, but they didn't talk about the seats that were flipped in Georgia. And then after that, now we have this last week election where Aileen Higgins won in Miami-Dade. Miami-Dade, super red, city, ruby red city, in a ruby red state, Florida, in a city where Donald Trump won by 12 points, in a city where Republicans, Cuban-American Republicans, had, they had control over 30 years. And all of a sudden, they lost. Look at this. Donald Trump won by 12 points in 2024. He never made it past 12 points. But Aileen Higgins made it to 19 points. She won by 19 points. Donald Trump didn't even have that kind of margin of advantage when he won. So Sean Hannity saw that. Jesse Waters, these are like, you know who these people are. And when they say we're screwed, we're losing the House in 2026, it's got to be bad. It's got to be bad. But that, I heard them saying that, and I was like, well, I guess you just can't cover like the sun with your hand or the sky with your hand. You can't deny reality. But then I heard Maria Bartiromo saying this. Let me play this video for you, saying that everywhere they won, including Miami, she said, these are blue states. And I'm like, what the hell? Is Florida blue all of a sudden? Miami blue? What are you talking about? But anyway, take a listen.
People are frustrated with housing and the price of homes. People are frustrated with certain food items. But there are a number of things that President Trump has already been incredibly successful doing. So when he says this
By the way, let me restart this. Donald Trump says that everything is down. Everything is way down, everything. But that's not what she's saying. Take a listen again.
People are frustrated with housing.
Why are people frustrated with housing if Donald Trump says that prices of everything are falling? Also, apparently not prices of housing? What else? What else, Maria?
And the price of homes. People are frustrated.
Housing and homes.
People are frustrated
Rents.
with housing and the price of homes. People are frustrated with certain food items.
Certain food items. We have certain food items that may actually have gone down in price, just like eggs. Not too many of them. But then the things, in general, groceries are up 25%. But anyway, let's keep going on because this gets better now.
But there are a number of things that President Trump has already been incredibly successful doing. So when he says this affordability issue is a hoax, he's right. He's basically talking about how the Democrats have taken this word affordability and used it as their calling card for the 2026 elections. They think that these Democrat wins that we just saw in Miami, in New York City, in other places like New Jersey, we shouldn't be surprised that the Democrats won those races. These are all blue states and cities. So it's no surprise there.
These are all blue states and cities, including the Miami loss. She mentioned that. Maybe she misspoke, and I hope she misspoke because probably that was it. But if not, they're so desperate. Like, they just don't want to say, hey, we lost. We have to figure out what's going on. There's some disconnect. We need to fix it. Check.
Democrat wins that we just saw in Miami, in New York City, in other places like New Jersey, we shouldn't be surprised that the Democrats won those races. These are all blue states and cities.
Are they, Maria? Are they? I didn't know Miami and Florida were blue states. That's kind of like a last minute last minute breaking news, to me. So very interesting that Fox's Maria Bartiromo is saying that Miami, Dade, and Florida happen to be blue states, and that's why we shouldn't even worry about it. But then that's also a very stupid argument, and I'm going to tell you why. And Republicans do that all the time, and I was grilling people on all my social media, on my podcast, my Spanish podcast. By the way, I host a Spanish podcast, which is my main Spanish, my main podcast. It's called Aranzamendi Podcast Español. And anyway, I started doing that in 2024 around the summertime, trying to help when things were getting very tight for the elections. And then I decided recently to start doing my same episodes. I have a lot of great content in Spanish, so I'm like, I might as well just do them in English. But anyway, I tell people, I grill all these MAGA, lackeys, laughable, people trying to argue like, New Jersey, Mondami won in New York, who cares? Those are blue states. They want to pretend they don't care. But that's not true. Because if not, they wouldn't be spending millions of dollars campaigning to try to turn those blue cities and states, try to turn them red. Okay, Donald Trump posted consistently trying to convince people to vote against Mandani. Not only Donald Trump posted consistently, Donald Trump threatened to take federal funding away. If you guys vote for Mandani, I'm not sending a single federal penny to New York City. Yeah, I don't know. Can somebody, my brain hurts. Can somebody help me here? Explain to me, as if I was 5 years old, explain to me, why in the world would Donald Trump be so focused, on threatening New Yorkers? If you vote for Mandani, I'm going to take your federal funding away. You better vote for Cuomo or even a Republican guy. But eventually, once he saw the Republican guy had zero chance, he's like, well, vote for for the second best or worst. In this case, in Donald Trump, is vote for the second worst candidate because I want the worst candidates. I want the criminals. I want the corrupt people. Those are my kind of people. So I need them. But anyway, why would Donald Trump spend any capital on that? Tell me, like this happens with all elections. Why, when they're going out on rallies, why don't they go to the places where they are completely comfortable, to when they normally go to the places that they need, to the battlegrounds where they know they're going to make the difference for electoral votes? And you see how they just pass. They just pass, many places where they're like, it's not politically convenient to go there right now and, spend our capital and our time when we're going to get the votes. We know for instance, some people are telling me, is Kamala Harris coming to Texas? I remember when I was doing a podcast, they would say, do you think Kamala Harris is going to come and rally, here in Texas? And I think eventually she did. I think eventually she showed up at Houston. But I was telling people, guys, you have to understand, now I'm not going to say it's impossible, but there's very little chance Kamala Harris is going to turn Texas. It makes no sense. This is why she was spending most of the time in battleground states and in those areas where she really had a chance to, turn things around and secure victory so that she can get the electoral votes. So the same happens with money. You think they're going to spend a lot of money campaigning in Texas when they need it in Michigan and they need it in Arizona, they need it in Georgia or, not Georgia, Arizona, Michigan, Wisconsin, and other battleground states? That's where they're going to spend the capital. So that tells you right there, the Republicans are full of shit, especially MAGA lackeys that don't want to admit that they're doing awful right now, that they're just taking a freaking beating, that there's a blue tsunami because people are rejecting. This is a complete rejection of Donald Trump, what we're seeing at the ballot boxes right now. So if that was the case, Donald Trump wouldn't be tweeting or truthing or, talking about it on the media. He would just be ignoring New York or New Jersey or whatever, because these are blue states. Who cares about that? Let's put our money and all our campaigns. And Donald Trump was endorsing these candidates, and all of his endorsed candidates, by the way, lost. So his his power, his influence right now, it's literally fading. And that's why I'm saying, you saw the 21 Republicans in Indiana, 21 Republicans joining Democrats, voting against Donald Trump's gerrymandered maps. They said, we're not going to do it. We're going to vote, against you. So that tells you that this is just pure hypocrisy. That excuse that Maria is using right there, this is what we expected. We knew they were going to win. Like, who cares about that? Yes, you care. Yes, you care, because you won't want to flip, these places to these cities. This is why you have candidates, and this is why you campaign, and why you put millions in money. This is why they put millions into California trying to stop Prop 50, because they didn't want Gavin Newsom to be able to redraw the maps legally, democratically. He allowed people to vote. Do you want California to react to the power grab in Texas? Because Greg Abbott folded and, Donald Trump did what he did in his butt. So people said, yes, go for it. I believe it was like almost 70% of the people voted in favor of redistricting. But they put a lot of money into that. So why do they care about these blue states? These blue states don't matter. Why do they care? Because they know. They know it's still bad. They know that, these people can still dominate and grow, and that can turn into more victories. You still have to campaign. And the fact that you just can't win and convince certain people, that tells you, something right there. But to see Maria saying that Miami-Dade, come on. I'm like, you got to be shitting me. You're not going to sell me this idea that Miami-Dade and Florida are blue, and that's why, no. Look at it and say, hey, we took a beating here. Why? What happened? What went wrong? Because these people just abandoned us all of a sudden. Oh, Miami-Dade is full of Hispanics. Oh, Cuban Americans are the ones controlling that area right there. Oh, Donald Trump is attacking again now the Cuban community, removing TPS and deporting a lot of these people are family members. Same with people from Mexico or from Venezuela. Hispanics are seeing that Donald Trump promised that he would go only after the criminals, and now they're coming up. I just saw in the news that supposedly they're trying to maybe take it down a notch when it comes to all this aggressiveness with DHS. I'm not sure if you saw the news or not. Go and check it. But they're promising that apparently they're going to supposedly tone it down a little bit right now, which I don't believe, because they have a bunch of racist, uneducated, very inept, inefficient people that don't know the law. They don't have any particular training. Some of them even had criminal backgrounds when they were being hired, and the background check was not very thorough or not even effective. So you can't trust these people. These people don't want to show their faces for a reason. If you were doing things the right way and legally, you would have had no reason at all. National Guard troops don't do it. Army, people don't do it. Navy people don't do it. Air Force people don't do it. Any police, local police, whatever it is, we never have had our officials covering their faces. And this is coming from the same party that wouldn't use a mask because it's hard to breathe. Oh, we can't breathe. I'm dying. All of a sudden, they can work even overtime, 7 days a week, picking up people off the street, kidnapping people, and abusing people, violating people's rights, and so on. And yeah, now it doesn't bother them to use the mask. The whole mask thing tells you right away they know what they're doing. And then they're so alpha males, great alpha males, unafraid, unapologetic. But please, no, I don't want anyone to see my face because then I'm going to be in danger. Oh, I'm going to be in danger. Oh, okay. Okay, alpha male. All of a sudden you're concerned because, I'm going to feel so insecure. I'm going to be in danger. Please hug me. Hug me, Pete Hegseth. Hug me, Cash Patel. I need a hug right now. They're so pathetic, guys. Absolutely 100% pathetic. But anyway, that's what's going on. So let me read a couple more comments because I have to go. Anyway, thank you guys for all of you have joined right now live. Let me see what else I have here. Paul Plord. Paul says here, this man is a liar. Learn the facts about Tiny Roberts. Learn the facts about Tiny Roberts. Paul, as far as I know, you're not a judge. And as far as I know, you're not from the jury. All we know, the facts is that she got processed legally and she lost her case and she had, lawyers. But the jury determined that she was guilty. And according to our Constitution and our laws, federal laws, we have a branch, which is the justice, the courts, judicial branch, and they run the show when it comes to holding all these proceedings and determining through a jury, determining who is guilty or not. And she went through her trial, and the trial found her guilty. That's why she's in prison. So maybe you have to learn the facts about Tina Peterson if you're trying to somehow say that she's innocent or whatever. Then try to request a revision or something. But as of now, according to our rule of law, what stands is that she is guilty and she is a felon and she's in prison. So, like Ben Shapiro will say, it's always, Facts don't care about your feelings, man. And it's funny because right now they're criticizing Mamdani for hiring a convicted felon, a guy who already paid his dues. He did his time. He has no debt to society when Donald Trump didn't pay his dues. And Donald Trump is the U.S. president. They wanted a convicted felon when he wasn't even sentenced. They were still rooting for him to become president. And now all of a sudden, it's always this double standard. Always this double standard, man. Okay, one way to know is she caught the Democrats cheating in the presidential election. Too bad she couldn't prove it in court, So whatever you say here has absolutely no bearing on the reality of the case that was presented in court. She couldn't convince the jury, so tough luck, try again. Buy another, soda and open and try again, see if under the cap you can find a price or something. Because unfortunately, she lost and your argument means absolutely nothing. Because, the court has its way of operating, and once the jury finally reaches, a verdict, it is what it is. You may not like it, but that doesn't mean that you can undo the jury's verdict. That's why Donald Trump is a convicted felon. You may vote for him all you want. You may love him. You may get a tattoo on one of your butt cheeks or something of Donald Trump. I don't give a shit. He is still a convicted felon. He is still a sexual abuser. He's still a person who defamed E. Jean Carroll. He's still a fraudster. He's still a twice impeached person. He's still, was impeached. And what was the other one? Twice declared an insurrectionist. Twice declared insurrectionist. So those are hard facts that are not going to change. That's history already, whether you like it or not. It's part of U.S. history. And, you can love them all you want. It's fine. Convicts that pay their dues, they have all the opportunity to, just get back, into their life and I don't know, just prosper and progress. I'm not against that at all. But in Donald Trump's case, we know he should have been in prison. If it hadn't been for Aileen Cannon, dismissing his classified documents case with this legal, novel, questionable theory that the special counsel was illegal when they named the special counsel to investigate Hunter Biden, and Hunter Biden's judge said, no, we're not going to follow the same decision and ruling that Aileen Cannon made for Donald Trump. That's not based on the law. The Hunter Biden case, the federal judge said, we're not going to do the same thing because that's not based on any precedent. It's not based on the law. So special counsel has always been legal. We have rulings from the Supreme Court saying that it has always been legal. But all of a sudden, they just threw out there. Clarence Thomas made an opinion saying that it was questionable the way supposedly Jack Smith was named and appointed. Some bullshit like that. And that was the whole excuse that Aileen Cannon said, well, now we have a Supreme Court judge, as if one Supreme Court judges, just opinion, just like that. Not a case, not a whole ruling. No, just an opinion of one judge. All of a sudden, what's the law? But anyway, she used that to dismiss the classified document case. And then they came up with around May 2024, they came up with the presidential immunity decision. And because of that, now everything else changed. Because now all of a sudden, now we had a special category for one individual in the whole, history of this country. There had never been anyone in the country with presidential immunity until they came up with that bullshit, which is not grounded. It's not based on the Constitution. It's nowhere to be found in federal law or the Constitution. But they needed to save him. They needed to save him. They didn't want to see Donald Trump, in prison, and he was heading to prison. So this is why you can't compare the rapper in New York, that Mamdani is hiring right now, or integrating into his transition team or whatever it is. That guy paid his dues. He did, I believe he did 7 years, and now he's, for the past 15, 20 years, he has been a great community leader, and he's doing great. So he owes nothing to society, not unlike Donald Trump. Donald Trump was saved by partisan judges who decided to change the law so that they could give him a pass. And that's why they allowed him to remain on the ballot, because Colorado had removed Donald Trump from the ballots. 2 different courts in Colorado, 2 courts found Donald Trump to be they ruled he was an insurrectionist. 2 courts. So in case you didn't know that, a lot of MAGA, people don't know this. Donald Trump has been ruled by 2 courts to be an insurrectionist. That's why they removed him from the ballot. But then they went all the way to the Supreme Court, all the way up, and the Supreme Court said, you know what, we're not going to argue the merits of the insurrection case because obviously the evidence was overwhelming. That would have been amazing for them to try to take on that case. But they didn't want to rule over that. They said, we're going to rule over the question or the conflict of if a state should be capable of removing a candidate from a federal election. You see how all of a sudden the independence is so important? Yeah, we have federal elections and you have state elections. So we don't want a state interfering with a federal election. That was the argument. And I'm going to agree. It sounds plausible. The problem is that the state wasn't determining shit because they were not using a state law. They were using the Constitution that says clearly that an insurrectionist shouldn't hold office. And Donald Trump was already ruled twice an insurrectionist. So based on the plain language of the Constitution, Donald Trump was disqualified because of it. So they decided, well, we're not going to argue if he is or not an insurrectionist. We just want to wait, and our ruling is that we're going to ask Congress to come up with a mechanism to determine how, where, and when we're going to disqualify an insurrectionist from holding office. Since we don't have a mechanism like that, at the time, we cannot allow a state to interfere with a federal election. So you see, they were clever. I have to give it to them. They were clever. And now some of them, there's reports that some of them may be regretting their decision because Donald Trump is taking things too far. But this is the monster you guys created. This is what you wanted. You guys wanted to have a king, right? He said he was going to be a dictator for a day. You wanted a king. You wanted a dictator. You wanted an autocrat. Donald Trump told you what he was going to do. He was surrounding himself with all these people from Project 2025. And now all these people from Miami-Dade, Republicans and Hispanics that voted for him are like, oh, we thought he was going to go only after the criminals. That's why I voted for him. I never thought he was going to do this. Everybody told you. Everybody told you. The best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. And Donald Trump's first term told you everything you needed to know about how he was going to handle immigration, about how racist he is, about how he violated the law time and time again. But these people are fools. They're fools. Look at what happened with the executive order, this executive order to lower drug prices, right? What did MAGA world do? What did Fox do and all the right-wing media ecosystem? What did they do? They flocked, to their little, channels or whatever, their media, to turn on the camera, so roll the camera. Yeah, Donald Trump just signed an executive order to lower drug prices. And that was bullshit. Why it was bullshit? Because it was not binding. That executive order didn't have the power that he had done during his first term, and the courts had already struck it, they struck it down. So now he knew he was going to do the same thing, but people are not going to investigate. They're not going to go deep and dive deep and understand what's going on. So since it was just an executive order, it's just like, I don't know, just like a promise. Yeah, we're going to do it someday. He needed Congress to legislate. So you know what happened? Ro Khanna grabbed the executive order just like that, literally verbatim, whatever was written there, he just made a copy paste. And he said, you know what, since we need legislation to make this work, so that Donald Trump executive order can actually have, some traction and some feet to lower drug prices, let's create a law. I'm going to create a law. Ro Khanna, Democrat Ro Khanna, he copy-pasted Donald Trump's executive order, pasted into a new bill, and he went onto Republicans and said, here is the bill with Donald Trump's executive order. Literally word by word, everything is there. We haven't changed a single thing. So let's now bring this to the floor and let's vote on it. And they rejected it. So they know you are a fool. They know you're not going to learn. You're not going to understand. You're not going to analyze. You're just going to go with the narrative. The narrative is Donald Trump signed an executive order to lower drug prices. But when push comes to shove and they take that same executive order and then bring it to the actual, to Congress, to make it into a bill, which non-Republican did. A Democrat did it to put them on the record. They said no. And this is what they do. Donald Trump, I have to give him this. He may be a convicted felon. He may be crooked as hell. He may be racist. He may be a lot of things. But he's not stupid. And he's a master at manipulating the media, the narrative, and just plain dumb and repeating the same thing. I have to give him that. I'm going to tell you something. This MF lost an election. He almost, prevented the peaceful transition of power. He incited an insurrection, and he did all these things. But then he kept going for 4 years, repeating the same thing. Oh, Russia, Russia, Russia. Oh, persecution. Oh, witch hunt. Oh, the stolen election. 4 years, nonstop, whining like a little bitch, repeating the same things day in and day out. You have to give him that. He's consistent. So he keeps convincing people. MAGA, world unfortunately keeps falling for him. But there is a little bit of hope. Marjorie Taylor Greene is abandoning Donald Trump. She just actually called him out today for posting this Rob Reiner absolutely petty, unpresidential message. So petty. I'm not even going to get into that. You already saw it. It's all over social media right now. But she's leaving now on this January 5th, I believe. There's reports that Nancy Mace is leaving also. And at least 20, I believe it's 22 or 23 Republicans already announced they're not seeking re-election. And that many of them may even actually retire ahead of time. So that may impact, Republicans' own majority before the 2026 midterms. And then add to that the 21 Republicans in Indiana who just voted against Donald Trump's gerrymandering. Joining Democrats and telling him, you need to stay in your little Oval Office, stay, I don't know, just entertain yourself, just dealing with your ballroom or whatever. Let us do us. Let us handle our state stuff and stop your stupid White House from pressing us day in and day out. We don't appreciate that. So there's a lot of people mad out there for many reasons. Even with the gerrymandering thing, like some of these people that are going to lose now, because of the redistricting, because they started this in Texas to take those seats away from Democrats illegally in a very undemocratic and illegal way. Now, these people are going to run the same fate. In California, many Republicans, once they do the redistricting, they're going to lose their positions. So now they're like, what the hell? Why did you do this? Like now I'm going to lose, my power here. I'm going to lose my position. Because he's not going to be, those same people are not going to be able to win once they redraw these maps. It's highly unlikely that they're going to win. So there's a lot of people very, very mad with everything, including what's going down in the Caribbean. Remember, they're going to try to save face. They're going to try to give you the impression of unity and all of that because they can't allow the party to collapse right now, just a year away from the midterms, roughly a year away from the midterms. So they can't allow this to happen. But internally, there is a ton of, shit going on right now. People are mad. People know that things are being taken too far. And Lindsey Graham and a bunch of others, Rand Paul, Thomas Massey, we have a bunch of people very, very upset with the way Republicans, with the way Donald Trump is handling the government. Not only that, how he's allowing certain people like Stephen Miller and other people that are not, elected officials, but, they're Donald Trump's inner circle, and they have a lot of power because he has given them a lot of power. And many Republicans are not down for all the things that these people are also pushing and doing because they know it. Deep down, everybody knows what's going on, even Republicans. And the thing here is that they're making the mistake. So, perfect. They want to make this mistake. Let them make this mistake. We made this mistake in 2024. Democrats thought they were going to win. There was a disconnect. People at every single poll was saying life is not affordable. We're not able to, to live. This is just unsustainable. But they were thinking, yeah, we have it in the bag. Why? Because, we have all these jobs and we have all these bipartisan laws and we have the best economy in the world and fastest recovery post-COVID. And Biden did have a lot of results. Now, it wasn't perfect, but he had a lot of results to fall back on. Way better than Trump by far, but still, people are not feeling it in their pockets. Cost of living was still up. Electricity was up. Groceries were up. Everything was up. Rent was up. So people decided just to vote against him. And the same thing is repeating itself right now. Same situation. And what are Republicans doing? Denying the whole thing the same way Democrats denied that the situation was really bad for consumers, for people, for just regular everyday Americans. So let them make the same mistake. We learned the hard way that as much as you think you have it in the bag, you don't. If you're not helping people, to be able to live with dignity and be able to afford the things that they need, just basic stuff, they're not going to make it. They're not going to make it. Anyway, guys, let me read one or two more comments, and then I'm going to wrap it up. I'm going to leave it here. So let me see here. The Ninth Circuit is one of the most extreme leftist activist courts. Yeah, that's your opinion. It's still a court, and you still have to comply and abide by its rulings. We can say the same thing about the Supreme Court of the United States, which is full of Republicans. So anyway, that again, these are things that have absolutely no bearing on reality. You can claim that people are partisan. Like right now, let me tell you, I believe the Supreme Court is totally partisan, 6-3, and they're helping Donald Trump. They're saving him. But it is what it is. They have the last word, so we have to live with it. I'm not going to do Democrat. You're never going to see Democrats storming the Capitol like all these sore losers that went and tried to stop the election. He won. It is what it is. We have to freaking deal with it. But we're not going to deny reality. It is what it is. You don't have to agree, but they still are a court, whether you like it or not. And that is what we heard a couple of times. So one way to know says, I hope Trump never gives up. Okay, whatever. The judicial branch opposite, it says the judicial branch should not be able to dictate the executive branch. Troops are there to protect federal place and buildings, period. Well, the problem is that you forget that there's independence. The judicial branch is a co-equal branch, and their job is to interpret the law. And Donald Trump is violating the law. So if the executive, let me pose this question to you. If the executive, let's say, forget about Trump. If the executive is violating the law, who is to determine that? Do you want the own executive determining if the executive is violating the law? You see how that, I'm gonna be Chris Hansen for a second. You see how that looks, right? Chris Hansen, remember Chris Hansen? You see how that looks, right? I enjoyed that program, that show so much. So you have to respect. You may not like it, but even Roberts, the Supreme Court, president, was saying if you don't like a lower court decision, there is a resource. There is a way. You go on appeal, and if you don't like the appeals, decision, then you go all the way up to the Supreme Court. That's the process. That is the law. That is what our Constitution establishes. So you may not like it, but the law is the law, and the executive is not above the law. And remember, it's the court's job, at any level, it's the court's job to determine if the executive is abiding by the law or not. So as much as you may hate it because you want Donald Trump to be above the law, he is not. Well, to a certain degree, because, we know the Supreme Court has put him kind of like up there. But you know what I'm saying. I'm pretty sure that now you're saying this. But once, if Kamala Harris wins or Gavin Newsom wins, I wish I could just screenshot this and hold it, but, you don't follow me probably. And I may not see you again in any of my shows. So I'm not going to screenshot this. But you should screenshot this to see if you're going to live by this same principle once Gavin Newsom is in power and Gavin Newsom starts to run his own agenda and you don't like it. And then Republicans want to stop him using the courts. I want to see if you're at that point, you're going to say, hey, you guys, you shouldn't do that. We told them last time around that, we shouldn't stop a president's agenda because courts shouldn't stop a president's agenda. That sounds so stupid, by the way. A court, who's going to stop it then? Who's going to stop it? Are you really going to be that dumb and naive to think that every single president is going to make it to the White House? Is going to be an angel sent by God that is going to abide by the law voluntarily with no guardrails and no one to slam the brakes? Come on, man. You have to be a special kind of stupid or idiot to believe that Donald Trump is gonna, self-regulate himself. Like he said about Elon Musk. Remember when they said, well, Elon Musk is canceling contracts of his competitors and actually awarding contracts to his own companies. And they said, well, he told us that if there was going to be a conflict of interest, he would recuse himself. He would just, personally make those determinations with no guardrails. And remember, they got rid of all the inspector generals and anything. So there was nobody to actually supervise those things. Is that the kind of accountability you want in government? So people can, depending who's in power, can really abuse the system and power? And no, man, this is why we have a really good system in place, but they're really doing everything they can to bring it down, to keep precisely to get rid of all these guardrails and controls that we have. So we're not going to have a system of check and balances anymore. That's what you're proposing right now. APOC, APOCIL 7110. That's what you're proposing. You want unchecked, completely unchecked executive power. Why don't you move to Cuba? They have a really good system there that you're gonna love. Move to Russia, move to Korea, North Korea. Go and live with Kim Jong-un. I'm pretty sure you're gonna love it there. That's exactly the kind of thing you're granting. So remember to say, be careful what you wish for. California is a shithole. Who cares what you have to say? 20 million illegals affect more than a state. It's the national threat. Yeah, of course. Yeah, whatever. They are supposed to be able to protect foreign and domestic. Trump 2028, get a wheelchair or something, because this guy is falling apart in front of the cameras every single day. Make sure they have an oxygen tank, because I'm not sure he's going to even make it to 2029. So celebrate all you want, but just have a plan B, because, he's not looking like he's going to, like he has very long to live. I'm just being honest with you. He doesn't look like that. All these, right now, how you call that? Hematoma in English is the, it's not a blister. My bad. Just a second. My brain is working to find the word. I know it would be. Anyway, he has these really bad spots, blood spots. And right now, what's going on with that? It's been like 3 months, if not 4, him with all this thing and all this makeup, and it looks really bad. So apparently they're giving him these like IVs like daily or something, every other day. They have to be doing that for him to have this like so bad going on, those marks. And then they reduce his schedule from 12 to 5. So he's a part-time president right now because he just can't keep up. He can't keep up. And you guys say, yeah, Trump 2028. Bro, start looking for the next guy. Are you in love with Donald Trump? Is it that bad? Do you have a crush with Donald Trump or something? Bro, so we have so many Republicans in this country, and so many good Republicans. Even though I'm a progressive, I know there's people that, are decent Republicans. And, they do their job and they have a great, political career and a great public service, record and so on. And you still want to hold on to a, convicted felon? Man, go and seek some help, bro. Well, thank God for Donald Trump. Which God? That's certainly not the God in heaven. That reminded me of Donald Trump when they asked him, "Are you said that the Bible is your favorite book?" And he said, "Yeah, the Bible, my favorite book. Can you at least, share what's one of your favorite verses?" And he's like, "Oh, no. I don't want to share it." And they're like, "Yeah, just one. And he's like, no, that's too personal. I don't want to get into personal stuff when it comes to faith and the Bible, but it's my favorite book." And they're like, "Are you more like a Old Testament kind of guy, more of a New Testament?" And he's like, both. This guy couldn't even quote a single verse of the Bible. Oh man, this is so pathetic. So pathetic. Says claps, for Trump. Hey, whatever. If it suits your narrative to follow convicted felon man, it is what it is. Leftists always say the destruction of the Constitution, but show me one instance. We are a Christian country. It says in our Constitution. Really? Can you tell me where? It says in the Constitution. Man, I don't even have time for all this bullshit. I'm gonna leave, guys. Thank you for tuning in, even for you MAGA guys posting your stuff. Obviously I'm not in agreement, but I'll definitely keep sharing some comments and reading from time to time once I finish every episode. So I'll be back tomorrow with more political commentary and more news. And hopefully, I'll be able to get through to some of you guys that are completely lost right now, lost and confused with what's going on in our country. And you're definitely completely disconnected from the rule of law and the Constitution and, even history and so on. But, it is what it is. When you're connected to, I don't know, just watching a bunch of TikTok or right-wingers, this is what happens. But anyway, thank you so much. Take care, and I'll catch you guys on the next episode, okay?